Hello, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. My name is Caitlyn with Leap Personal Finance, and today we're going to be talking about what financial freedom looks like as a new and expectant parent. I'm going to go ahead and open my presentation. I'm sorry this wasn't already ready for us. That's how it goes, right? Every time. All right, here we go. All right, what does financial freedom look like for new and expectant parents? So a little bit about LEAP before we jump in. LEAP Personal Finance is a financial wellness program designed exclusively for new and expectant parents. We know that this is a time of life when there's a lot of transitions, a lot of changes happening, and we want to make sure that you have the financial knowledge, capacity, all those different things so you can navigate this season of life effectively. So right now we are talking about what financial freedom looks like for new parents. We often hear when people hear they're expecting, they say, well, I'm not ready financially. I don't know, if I can afford this little one. And the bottom line is, if you wait to be able to quote unquote afford a child, no one ever have a baby, right? Like this season of life is just, it's expensive. It is what it is. You navigate it and the Lord somehow provides, right? So we're going to talk about kind of adjusting our expectations and, doing what we can do to make sure that we can navigate this season effectively and that we are, doing what we can do to just not be so financially stressed. All right. So before we even talk about the tactical steps to take, I want to talk about redefining financial freedom. Financial freedom can mean different things to different people. For a lot of people, when you hear the term financial freedom, you hear people talking about things like, they have enough investments to handle, covering their basic needs for the next however many years, or they have the emergency fund and they have percentages going in different accounts and things like that. Lots of definitions of financial freedom. I feel like for especially new parents, it's really important that we redefine financial freedom so we can kind of like adjust our expectations accordingly. So financial freedom isn't about being rich. It's about reducing your stress and having choices. It's about feeling like you're in control of your day-to-day expenses and you also have some control over what your long-term goals look like, right? That's what we're really looking for. That sense of control, that sense of capacity, that's what we're aiming for. And that's what financial freedom really looks like. For new parents, financial freedom can look like knowing your bills are paid and your baby's needs are met, right? Knowing that you can pay that electricity bill, and you know that you can pay for diapers and formula and all that kind of stuff, right? Also having a simple plan for the unexpected. When the unexpected happens, we don't necessarily rise to the occasion when we don't have a plan, but we default to whatever we had pre-decided to do. Okay. So if you have a very simple plan for when the unexpected happens, whether that be having an emergency fund or having someone you can call or having some kind of backup resource, that really gives you a sense of peace and it gives you a sense of like control over your situation. And then finally, feeling calmer about the future. You know what tomorrow brings when you have that sense of financial control because you know at least your needs are met and that you'll be able to weather the storm. So instead of defining financial freedom as I have enough of my own money saved or I never have to work again, who does that? No one does that. That's not really a thing. Financial freedom is about reducing your stress and having choices. That's what we're aiming for. All right. So there's common stressors that new parents face financially that we want to make sure we talk about. First one, childcare costs. Childcare costs obviously are very expensive. We hear this all the time that childcare costs are through the roof. We want to make sure that as a new parent, we're planning for those and we're preparing for those childcare costs so we can weather that, impact on our budget. Also, medical bills. Medical bills can be expensive. Little ones, it's not just the pregnancy and it's not just the birth, but also little ones have an average of 10 doctor's visits in the first year. There's the regular schedule of appointments that they have, but there's also an average number of sick visits. So we tell new parents to plan on at least 10 sick visits that, or 10 visits that first year with their pediatrician and planning for those financially. Also, there's baby supplies. This one is an area where you can spend a couple $100 and you'll be all set, or you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars, right? But it's a common stressor because people don't know how much they cost. They don't know what they're going to be able to get used or new, and they don't know what they have to necessarily purchase because you just you go on once you know you're pregnant, you go on social media, you see all these different things that you feel like you need, and you don't really know what your baby needs until they get here, right? So that unknown can be a stressor. Oh, and then I had childcare cost again. I don't know why I had that, but there was something else we were going to cover. Fine, we go with it. All good. All right. But these are three pillars of financial freedom for new parents. These are things I want to make sure when we work with clients who work with us at Leap that they know that they're aware of and they're focusing on. So in order to weather those stressors of those common stressors that parents have, being the childcare, baby supplies, medical costs. I thought of the fourth one. That's so funny. It just hit me right now. I supposed to put in there. That your income becomes a little less stable that first year. That is a common stressor. So we want to make sure we're preparing for that. It could be that you have to take cut time off for maternity leave to recover from your birth. It also may be, again, because the little one's get sick so much that you're taking days off of work to be home with your little one who's sick. So that is another common stressor that parents deal with, right? But when it comes to dealing with those financial stressors, here's the three pillars of financial freedom that we want our clients to focus on at least. First one is to focus on your needs versus your wants. It's really surprising to people when we actually do like a 3-month spending analysis as to where their money has been going, how much is actually going toward the needs versus wants. When they are thinking about their spending, they often just think that they are only covering their needs and that there's very little going to like extra things, like whether it be, dining out or, subscription, things like that. When you actually do the math, it is usually quite shocking how much is going to his wants and not necessarily going to needs. So we want to make sure we focus on those needs first before we cover those wants. But it's really important we do that 3-month budget analysis so we know what we're actually spending. The next thing the next pillar for new parents is we want them to utilize community resources. There is no shame in applying for WIC or SNAP or TANF or any of those benefits, right? Those benefits are there for you to use in a period of time that you need them. As soon as you're done needing them, at that point, you let them know, you turn them off, and you can go ahead and pay it forward through your tax lane, going forward. But you can utilize them when you need them. They are there to cover that season in life when your income may not cover all of your expenses. So don't be afraid to utilize those community resources. And then finally, setting up a break-even budget. Like I said before, when you do a 3-month budget analysis, it's usually pretty shocking to people for them to see how much money is going towards things that aren't necessarily needs. When we do a break-even budget, we know exactly what our needs are, and we know how much income we have to cover those needs, right? So having the information and not playing financial ostrich. That's key. And when you don't know your break-even budget and you don't know what your needs are, you're allowing yourself to play financial ostrich because you don't know the information. So you're digging your head in the sand, and we're just living as big stress balls, right? That's no good. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure we have the information so then we can work from fast. So those are the 3 pillars of financial freedom for new parents. We want you to focus on your needs, utilize community resources to cover the gap, and then set up that break-even budget so you know exactly how much income you need to have coming in to cover those essentials. All right. The next thing when it comes to feeling confident and getting towards financial freedom is having that safety net. Okay. Building that emergency fund it's just so important. It's what makes people sleep at night, right? I know your little one doesn't want you to sleep at night, but your emergency fund is going to be why you're losing sleep at night, right? So we want to make sure we have some sort of emergency fund. What I hear a lot is I have nothing left. There's no money left at the end of the month. I don't know how I'm ever going to start getting an emergency fund. Well, if that's the situation, In that case, what I want you to do is to consider selling something of value because you need to have that cash in the emergency fund. So if you have like, a vehicle that you're not using or, something of value that you're okay to sell, you have permission to sell, it's yours. I'd recommend you do that. The other thing is to go to unclaimed.org. Unclaimed.org is the website that is set up by the state treasurer's offices, where if maybe you left an old utility deposit or like an apartment deposit or something like that at some place where you previously lived, that website will let you know what money and unclaimed resources you have. Now, it's going to take a couple months to get those funds to you because you have to like send in an application and all those different things. But those funds are due to you, and that might be cash that you didn't realize you had access to. So that's another way to do it. And then finally, I want you to consider looking again at all your subscriptions or maybe like a Hulu subscription or Spotify or Netflix or something that we can turn off for a few months. And then we just take that $13.99 or whatever that subscription is, and we set that up as an auto pay into a savings fund, to a savings account. Well, you never had it anyways because you were paying for that subscription, so you're not going to feel the pinch. And that's a really good way to build up an emergency fund. Within a year, you'll be at a couple $100 just by doing that little bit. And a couple $100 could be the difference between weathering an emergency or, having to take on high interest debt for an emergency and then setting ourselves that much further back. So just consider those options to get that safety net going. And then again, they'll help you figure out when you know that you can weather a financial emergency if it were to happen. And it's going to happen because that's just what life throws at us. Okay. I also want you to consider creating some breathing room. If you do the numbers, we run the numbers and we see that your budget is at break even, that like, maybe you're making it, but just barely. At that point, we want to look at some things to get yourself a little bit of margin so you don't feel so squished every single month, right? So to do that, again, we're going to look at cutting the subscriptions, those recurring costs that aren't necessarily need. We're going to turn those off. Most Americans think they have 70 something dollars worth of subscriptions. In reality, it's something like $242, I want to say, in monthly subscriptions. So we have a lot more in subscriptions than we realize. We can turn those off. That can give you some breathing room in your spending plan. When it comes to having to pay for things for the baby, we want you to look at like hand-me-downs and buy nothing groups. Those things are awesome on Facebook. Just go to join those groups. Baby items are things that people are always looking to get rid of, and there's no need to have to pay for it out of pocket, right? If it's being offered for free. And then also, we want you, as you have like baby showers or birthday parties for your little one, encourage practical gifts instead of the extras. So if people are asking what you want, don't necessarily go out there and get a baby registry with like a bunch of crazy stuff on there. Make it a diaper shower, right? Or let them know that you plan on using this one formula and that's what I would like. Or let them buy you gift cards for Amazon, or whatever it is. But encourage those practical gifts over the cute little onesies. They're going to buy you the onesies anyways. So I would just let them know you need the diapers, and then they'll probably just get it. But encourage those practical gifts before you get the fun stuff. Okay, so that's all we have for you today when it comes to what financial freedom looks like when you parent. It's very different than what other people will tell you financial freedom looks like. Other places will tell you financial freedom looks like not having to work again, or early retirement, or being your own boss. That is baloney. For a vast majority of people, financial freedom looks like knowing you can handle the day-to-day things that come up, but also knowing you can make plans for the future, right? That's what we're aiming for. If you have not heard about LEAP yet, LEAP is a financial wellness program primarily offered through our LEAP app that is for new and expectant parents. So you can download the LEAP app from the LEAP store or from the app store and see how it can help you. Sorry, we have a Budget Like a Mother program on the LEAP app. It is amazing. So go ahead and download that, and you can get going to work yourself towards financial wellness with your little one. You can email us at info@leappersonalfinance.org or give us a phone call. And LEAP partners with organizations such as maternity homes, pregnancy resource centers, any community organization that supports new and expectant parents to make sure they have access to good, healthy financial knowledge and insight make the best financial decisions they can for their little ones and themselves. So that's all we have for you today. It's great to see you all. I don't think there's any questions in the chat, so we're going to leave it at that. But until next time, I hope that everything goes well and wish you a rich life as you budget like a mother.